In 1945, one of the biggest car factories in Europe sat half destroyed, ownerless, and unwanted. Two major car companies were offered it for free. Both said no. A young British Army major, barely 30 years old, was sent to decide whether the whole place should simply be torn down instead. Today, that same factory sits at the heart of the largest car company on Earth. This is the story of how nobody wanted Volkswagen and how one man refused to let it disappear. Volkswagen, the factory nobody wanted that became the world's biggest car maker. A factory built for a promise that never came. The Volkswagen factory was built in the late 1930s in a specially constructed town in Germany to produce a cheap car ordinary families could supposedly afford through a national savings scheme. War broke out before a single completed car reached any of the scheme's saving customers. War broke out before that promise was ever kept. Almost nobody who paid into the savings scheme ever received a car. Instead, the factory switched entirely to building military vehicles for Germany's war effort. Here's a detail that still troubles historians today. Around 336,000 ordinary people paid weekly installments into that savings scheme, trusting they'd eventually receive their own car. Not a single one of them ever did. Decades later, some of those original savers took Volkswagen to court, and in 1961, the company was finally ordered to offer them some compensation, though it amounted to only a small fraction of what they'd actually paid in. By 1945, Allied bombing had left much of the factory in ruins, and Germany itself lay in defeat. Nobody, including the Allied powers now occupying the country, seemed entirely sure what to do with what remained. The logo that had to be redesigned. Here's a fact that even longtime owners often don't know. The original Volkswagen badge, designed in the 1930s, included design elements deliberately echoing Nazi party symbolism, since the company itself had been founded directly under that government. The British military administration had the logo redesigned after the war, removing its Nazi-era symbolism. After the war, the British administration running the factory had the badge quietly redesigned, stripping out those elements entirely, leaving the simple circular V&W badge still used, in only slightly modified form, on every Volkswagen today. The major who refused to give up on a ruin. The factory fell inside the British-controlled zone of occupied Germany. In August 1945, a young Royal Engineers officer named Ivan Hurst was sent to assess it, expecting, quite reasonably, that it might simply be dismantled for scrap. Hurst instead persuaded the British Army to order 20,000 cars, giving the factory an actual reason to keep running. Instead, Hurst saw an opportunity. He persuaded the British military government to place a large order, 20,000 cars, to be used as transport for the occupying forces themselves. It gave the ruined factory an actual, immediate reason to start running again. The first civilian car rolled off the line by the end of 1945, built by German workers under British military direction, inside a factory that many had already assumed was finished for good. Hurst's problem-solving went well beyond cars. Facing severe food shortages among the workforce, he even authorized planting cereal crops directly on spare factory land, simply to help feed his own workers through the lean post-war years. In 1948, with the factory's future looking more stable, Hurst helped bring in a former Opel executive, Heinrich Nordhoff, to take over daily management. Nordhoff would go on to lead Volkswagen through its most explosive years of growth. But it was Hurst's improvisation in the ruins that gave him a company worth leading at all. The company, two car giants turned down for free. By 1948, the British were looking to hand the factory over entirely, ideally to an established car company that could take it from here. They offered it essentially for free to Ford. Ford's own executives reportedly concluded the whole business wasn't worth having. Ford's leadership looked it over and turned it down flat, reportedly concluding the whole business simply wasn't worth having. Around the same time, another British car boss, Sir William Rootes, inspected the factory and its odd little car and confidently predicted the whole project would collapse within 2 years, dismissing the car itself as thoroughly unattractive to any ordinary buyer and entirely unsuitable for what he considered modern taste. Both men would turn out to be spectacularly wrong. The car America was told it wouldn't want By the 1960s, the little car that Roots had dismissed found itself competing directly against enormous American vehicles in America itself. Rather than pretend the car was something it wasn't, an American advertising campaign leaned entirely into its small size and odd shape, with a now famous advert simply titled "Think Small." It became one of the most celebrated advertising campaigns in history, precisely because it refused to oversell a genuinely humble little car. On February 17, 1972, the Beetle officially overtook the Ford Model T as the best-selling car ever made. The approach worked. On the 17th of February 1972, the Beetle officially became the best-selling car of all time, finally overtaking Ford's own Model T, the very company that had once turned this factory down entirely for free. Around the same time, Volkswagen's boxy camper van became an unlikely icon of an entirely different world, adopted by an entire generation of young Americans as a symbol of freedom and counterculture, about as far from its origins as a factory product could possibly travel. The last Beetle ever built. Here's a fitting final chapter to that original design. Production of the classic air-cooled Beetle actually continued for decades in Puebla, Mexico, long after it had stopped in Germany. The final classic Beetle was built in Mexico in July 2003, more than 21 million units after production began. The very last one rolled off that Mexican production line in July 2003, drawing a formal close to a single continuous car design that had by then sold well over 21 million units across nearly 7 decades. The scandal that cost over 30 billion euros? Volkswagen's modern story isn't only one of triumph. In 2015, American regulators discovered that millions of Volkswagen diesel cars contained secret software, designed specifically to detect when the car was being tested and cheat the results. The deception was actually uncovered almost by accident, by a small team of university researchers testing real-world emissions simply to promote diesel technology in America, not to catch anyone cheating. Their results made no sense until regulators eventually forced Volkswagen to admit the truth. The software allowed cars to emit up to 40 times the legal pollution limit during normal driving. During an official test, the software activated full emissions controls. On a normal road, those controls quietly switched off, allowing the cars to emit up to 40 times the legal pollution limit. The scandal, quickly nicknamed Dieselgate, affected around 11 million vehicles worldwide. Volkswagen's chief executive resigned within days. The company eventually set aside more than 30 billion euros in fines, recalls, and legal settlements, and some executives faced criminal charges. It remains one of the largest corporate scandals in industrial history, and a stark reminder that the company's modern success has come with real, serious failures along the way. The bigger picture. It's worth sitting with how close this entire story came to not happening. 2 major car companies looked at this factory and saw nothing worth saving. One young Army officer, given a fairly ordinary assignment, decided otherwise. Volkswagen Group is now, by many measures, the largest car manufacturer on Earth, briefly overtaking Toyota for the top spot by global sales in 2016, and owning brands from Audi to Porsche to Bugatti. All of it traces back to a bomb factory that 2 of the biggest names in the car industry once turned down for nothing at all. Ivan Hurst never set out to build the largest car company in the world. He was simply told to assess a ruin and decide whether it was worth keeping. Everything that followed, the record-breaking sales figures, the beloved camper vans, and the multi-billion euro scandal alike, grew from that one nearly overlooked decision made by a young officer nobody expected to matter much at all.
Volkswagen.